Hello everyone, my name is Meghan LeVota and I offer wisdom, tools, and support for personality integration. And today I'm going to be discussing the whole concept of, are you on the right path? What does that even mean? People in the self-improvement industry and related circles sort of just throw the word path around and nobody really knows what it means, and who gets to decide if your path is even right or not? Is there one path that is more right than the others? This whole concept is sort of the crux of what I do, what I'm trying to help people understand. And so if you've been following me for a while, this probably won't seem super new to you because I've sort of interwoven this idea in a lot of videos, but it's such a big topic that I'm probably going to be making several videos going into this deeper. Because for those of you who are new here or perhaps don't know, what I mostly teach and share on my channel is the whole idea of psychological types, which is Carl Jung's theory of personality. And there are 16 archetypes that you are cognitively wired to process reality. And my whole thing that I want to talk about in regards of if you're on the right path is how we can use your personality as sort of a compass for whether or not you're on the right path or not. Carl Jung also talked about the whole idea of the individuation process, which is the process of integrating your shadow into your ego to become a more whole, conscious version of yourself and making the unconscious conscious. He has that famous quote that talks about how if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will subconsciously control your life. And it really does control your life. And that's why getting on the right path is so important. But how do you even know what path to go on? How do you even know what you're supposed to be integrating into your life? So the 16 personality types that I talk about, they're describing your cognition. They aren't describing everything to do with your personality. They aren't describing like what sort of flavor your soul has. I personally think astrology does a better job at that. It's how do I want to put this? It's like any personality can have any set of values, and any personality can have any set of opinions. There are common themes as to how your cognition, your cognitive wiring, your archetype in Jungian terms, there are patterns that you can see where, for example, if you're an ENFJ personality, you might be more likely to demonstrate these traits. But what I'm talking about here, your cognitive type, they don't have to do with traits. You might have heard of the Big Five, where there's conscientiousness, extroversion, introversion, openness, all of that. Those are traits. And a lot of personality theories are actually talking about traits. But what I'm talking about here, your cognitive type of personality, it has nothing to do with behavior or traits. It has to do with how you are wired to process reality. How are you perceiving the reality? How are you judging the reality? And does that have an extroverted or introverted orientation? Are you perceiving reality through a subjective lens and judging it through an objective lens? Or perhaps you are judging it through your subjective lens, but you're perceiving it through an objective lens. So these are the things that we talk about when we talk about what your cognitive type is wired for. So let me get back to the question, are you on the right path? What I want to share here today is that there is no one path for self-development. And what has happened in this industry is that people sort of show up and say, hey, I've found the answer. This is the answer. When really what they're saying is that this was the answer that worked for me. So if you don't know who you are, and if you don't know what your how you process the world, you might not know if what worked for somebody else worked for you. Sometimes it will. Sometimes if you highly resonate with the person who is saying, hey, I found a solution to this problem, it worked for me, you should follow this path or this rule book, and it might work for you. A lot of times if you resonate with that person, it will work for you. But if you're trying to put every person into the same box, it is not going to work for them. And so this is why it's so important to trust your own discernment and your own heart when you see teachers or methods of what to do to improve your life. You have to ask yourself if that actually resonates with you. And I guess what I am trying to do here on my channel and in my mentoring sessions is help people use their personality type as a tool to become a better version of themselves and a more integrated version of themselves, using what Carl Jung describes as the individuation process. Because if you look at your personality, it's a map to understanding what parts of your psyche are in your ego and what parts of your psyche are in your shadow. And if you know what is naturally in your ego and what's naturally in your shadow, then you know what direction to go. You know what you need to integrate. You know what you need to improve on. But a lot of us, if we don't know where we are, you could think of your personality type as a map of you are here. This is where you've started. And that's why a lot of people talking about personality theory will argue that we are born with a type. It's not something that we can change. It's something that we can evolve with, if that makes sense. If you have any questions about this topic, I am going to be explaining this more in depth in other videos in my channel. But I want to get to the crux of it here, is that, for example, a lot of people, they don't know themselves enough, and they can get tricked by people around them demonstrating certain skills or certain seeing that paths work for them. And we make a mistake when we assume that Johnny over here did this one thing and it led to success for him, but I'm trying to do this thing and it isn't working for me. There must be something wrong with me. When perhaps Johnny is just naturally really good at this thing, and for you it's actually in your mental blind spot position. Because the thing is, with each of our personalities, we each have a cognitive stack where we have our autopilot, we have our growth key, we have our mental blind spot, and we have our diamond in the rough. We have 8 cognitive slots of parts of your psyche that either are super easy to use, perhaps hidden to us, perhaps we have mixed emotions toward some of them. And if we can understand our relationship with each of the parts of our psyche, then we can learn to accept all of the parts of our psyche, really know who we are, really know what we need to work on, and how we can maximize our strengths to actually complete our goals. And that's why getting the right type is so important. So if you don't know what your type is, I do offer typing sessions, but so all of that's linked below as well. But that's why getting the right type is so important, because if you are mistyped, then you might be thinking that, oh my goodness, I really need to improve my sensing. And oh, I'm an intuitive, so I really need to improve my sensing. When if you're actually a sensor, you might just be rationalizing to yourself that you need to improve your sensing to stay in your comfort zone. So that's why it's so important to know what is your comfort zone and what is out of your comfort zone. So that's why I say that there are 16 paths to growth. There are the way I see this, a lot of you guys might be wondering that the number 16 is a little arbitrary. How do you even get that number? Well, Carl Jung, when we talk about the functions, there is feeling, thinking, sensing, and intuition. And this number 4 is sort of seen in all of ancient cultures. You see it in the tarot, you see it in astrology, because this number 4, feeling and thinking, sensing and intuition, it's a very, very basic way of looking at human nature. Intuition is connected to fire. It's connected to the suit of the of wands in tarot. And then you have thinking, which is connected to the element of air, which is also connected to the suit of swords in tarot. And then you have intuition, which is, I already said intuition, I thought. I don't know. I will link that below as well. I can't remember what I said, and I'm sort of on a roll here, but you get the idea that these elements and these suits are connected with the 4 functions that Carl Jung talked about, which is feeling, thinking, sensing, and intuition. And then those 4 functions, you can look at it from a introverted or extroverted orientation, and then that makes 8. And then, 8 makes 16's divisible by 8 is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, the way I view these things is that they are it's just a tool for you. You could divide yourself, you could divide humanity up in a billion pieces until you get to you being your own unique self. You can say, oh, we're all one, or you can say, oh, we're all individuals. And I found that looking at it through this lens of 16 types makes it really easy to get the gist of the different types of people, because these are patterns that we can really see. Like, I guess how I'm trying to describe this is that you can say, oh, we're all one, so why do we need to divide ourselves up? Okay, we're all one. So let's look at the duality in that. In the duality of that oneness, you can say, oh, there's some people are more extroverted, some people are more introverted. And then you can divide that again in 4s by saying some people are more feely, some people are more thinky. And then you can divide that again by saying, oh, some people are more intuitive, some people are more sensitive. Sensy. So yeah, you just can keep dividing, and the reason why it's 16 is because it encompasses these very basic ways of looking at humanity, where there might be more. And Dave Superpowers, another YouTuber, does divide this up into more. I think he divides it into 512. I think that there's something sacred about this number of 8 cognitive functions, 4 functions, 16 types. I find that there's something sacred in that, and I find that it works. And so what I am answering to your question, are you on the right path? The first step to knowing if you're on the right path is knowing who you are. And personality is just one aspect of it, but it's a great tool to help you know who you are, where you're starting on the map to self-improvement. You could think of yourself as like a seed. Like when you're born, you're a seed and you're growing into a plant. Every INFJ seed is the same seed, but every individual INFJ is going to be at a different stage of growth. They're going to look a little different. Some trees are going to be taller than others. Some are going to be more sturdy than others. You know what I mean? Like, we're all in different parts of our growth, but it doesn't make, like, if you are a baby sunflower or a big sunflower, it doesn't make you any less of a sunflower. And that's the way I view these types, is that, for example, if you are an INFJ and your autopilot function is introverted intuition, that is your autopilot. And no matter how developed you are, no matter how integrated the rest of your functions are in your psyche and in your ego, you're still an INFJ. And that's why it's helpful to talk about what INFJs are like. That would be like talking about what all sunflowers are like. You can say a range of how tall they tend to grow, but you can't say all INFJs are this way. You can't say all sunflowers are this many inches tall, because that's not how it works. We're all in different parts of our evolution, and it's a process. And what I want to teach on my channel, and if you're interested, please subscribe, is how can we know what our type is and then use that as a compass to grow and know where we're going and understand our strengths and weaknesses, maximize those things, understand our limiting beliefs, really wield what our strengths are, so that we can be excellent, so that we can achieve glory. Because the thing is, so many of us don't achieve glory and are not recognized for our excellence because we can't even recognize our own excellence in ourselves, and we're busy trying to meet other people's standards. Where if we can understand our own standards and what we actually are just like born with, we all have inbred greatness in us. Personality is just one aspect. It just gives us a little hint of what that greatness is. For example, for me, I'm an ENFJ, and extroverted feeling is my autopilot function. So if you, my greatness, my just inborn divine greatness is understanding, the environment of emotions and people and society. How I uniquely do that as Meghan LeVota is going to be different than any other ENFJ that ever existed. But knowing that I'm an ENFJ can help me understand, okay, this is my area of greatness. It is under the realm of extroverted feeling. And then it gives me, it's like an arrow pointing to, okay, this is something where I was born to shine in. And everybody has that area where they were born to shine. But when you don't know who you are, like I said, we are trying to meet other people's standards, which isn't fair. And you won't be recognized for your excellence if you are trying to meet other people's standards or standards that don't fit you. And we all have weaknesses. And understanding the 16 types, we know that we all have a mental blind spot that just is so annoying, and we feel like we're broken. We feel like we're stupid. All of us, we all feel like we're broken. But that's because a part of us is broken. And if a part of us wasn't broken, we wouldn't even have the mental space to be great at what we're great at. So we are great, and we're also broken. And if we can understand where we're great and where we're broken, then we can learn how to yield our greatness, ask for help and receive help for the parts where we are broken. Lean on others who are great at the things that we are broken in. So that's sort of the process. And if you're interested in understanding more about that cognitive function stack, I will link a video below and somewhere here in the cards. I am super excited to start getting real about sharing this process with you all. I have been researching more about Carl Jung's individuation process, and we'll be sharing more of that as well as my own insights, because I've sort of been already realizing a lot of this stuff myself before even realizing that this individuation process exists. So bear with me. A lot of it will feel like some overlap. These ideas aren't new, as I've said in other videos. I think that a lot of us in the collective are tapping into the same inspiration right now. So yeah, are you on the right path? That's for you to decide. And by the way, if you do want to be typed by me and Crystal, or by anyone who offers typing services, the results of your type will only be as accurate as your ability to know yourself and communicate who you are. So if you want to know how to know yourself and see yourself, watch my video called How to Know and See Yourself. I do talk about that in that video. But really, I am an expert in understanding the cognitive functions and helping people understand who they are. But you have to know who you are. You have to communicate who that is to me. And I guess to know if you're on the right path, you have to know yourself, and you have to be willing to see yourself and be honest about where your strengths and weaknesses are. What is on autopilot for you, and what area feels like a blind spot for you. And I think a lot of the reason why a lot of people are mistyped, or perhaps cling to types that don't fit them, is because they're ashamed of where their blind spot is. because they've been told their whole life that, or they've felt ashamed for that their entire life. And so it can be a rude awakening sometime to find what your real personality type is. For example, if you're an ENFP and you realize that your mental blind spot function is your introverted thinking, your ability to trust your own subjective, logical reasoning statement. ENFPs often go through life being told that they're stupid, or that they didn't think things through, or that they might seem sort of slow. And so they sort of tend to have a wound there. And that's where that blind spot comes in, is that their introverted thinking, their personal logical reasoning is a little bit broken. But that doesn't mean that they are broken as people. I mean, we all are. But there's a strength in that. There's a gift in that. The fact that that's their blind spot offers them insight that other people don't have. And if we can realize that we're all broken and that we all have a gift, then we can be a little bit less afraid to really reveal who we really are to ourselves and to others who are trying to help us find our type. Because if we're afraid of being told that we're stupid, or that we are cold, or that we are, incapable, or whatever thing you're afraid of hearing in finding your personality, then you might be, going down the wrong path, or you might be like working on aspects of yourself that don't need to be worked on. Where Carl Jung talks a lot about how we tend to inflate certain aspects of our personality while repressing others. And if we overinflate our ego, or if we are over-identifying with certain aspects of our personality, the more we over-identify, it shows that there are areas that we are repressing. So that's why I've said before that well-rounded, well-integrated people can be hard to type, because they won't really fit with the extreme stereotypes. So, because the stereotypes are there to help us understand by looking at, again, the dramatic polar ends. And that's why in my podcast, Synchronic Saturdays, I talk about the high and low vibe of each function. So subscribe to the podcast if you're not already. But that's why I talk about the high and low vibe, so that you can see the extremes to really know what you're looking for. But most people are somewhere in the middle, to where it's really hard to see those extremes. And so it can be hard to know, like, is this something I really should be working on? Or is this something that I'm rationalizing to myself that I need to be working on because it's actually my comfort zone? So that happens to the best of us. And so that's why I'm really passionate about this tool of personality type. And I'm passionate about helping people integrate their personalities as a tool to really guide them home and guide them to glory and to being who they really want to be in this world, and not just feeling like they have to pretend to be who they're not, because you won't ever be able to share your gift with the world if you won't even allow yourself to see the gift that you have to offer, if you're too ashamed of the parts where you're broken. So anyway, I hope this helped. I hope you found this video interesting. Subscribe if you want more. If there are anything that I touched on in this video that you would like me to go more into in future videos, just comment below with a topic. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.